Hey guys, Rollout here with LEGO Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Devastator version 3. To tell you the truth, my original Devastator had been disassembled for years, but it's one of my most popular classic creations, and it's been requested that I rebuild it a countless number of times. So I finally did just that, and pretty much reworked it from the ground up. I very nearly considered this its own numbered transformer, but I decided against it because structurally and in spirit it is very, very similar. So here we have Devastator version 3. This is my favorite way to display the group, looking busy around a pile of sand or dirt. However, Mixmaster doesn't really have much of a role here, and Hightower's just sort of in the background carrying around Devastator's head, but I still think they look great. It's a little bit difficult to see their details this way though, so let's focus on each vehicle individually and take a closer look. We're going to get through these guys starting from what I consider most changed to least changed, and Scrapper here is a completely different model. I reworked him so that his limb mode is a little bit more similar to Hightower, and I tried to strike a balance here between the Supreme Class toy and the real-world vehicle. So it's a little bit more chunky and it doesn't articulate in the middle, but it has this central hydraulic, and I think that's an okay compromise. The bucket can actually move up and down, and I think that's pretty cool. I packed in a lot of detail to give these guys a sense of scale. Some of them have lights where they really shouldn't have them, but I also sprinkled in some light gray, some dark gray, and black into each one to sort of break up their color schemes. There's also other scale-defining details like small seating areas and rails on a lot of the surfaces, because even though they're very small representations, these are supposed to be very, very large vehicles that you don't want to fall off of. Rampage looks a lot more like a bulldozer this time. I put much more emphasis on this front shovel here, and I think it really pays off. It has the hydraulic bits here, the grill, that front pipe, and I gave him proper treads, a lot like Leverage, and I think those look great. The original Overload was just sort of thrown together to fill in a space in the original combination, so I didn't put a whole lot of effort into his individuality. But this time I tried to make him stand on his own. I beefed up the entire front section, made that a whole lot more broad and accurate. He still doesn't really articulate in the middle, which is kind of the whole point of this sort of vehicle, and there isn't any room in the bucket there, so he fails as a dump truck, but he looks a whole lot better, and there's an added hinge in the middle here, so his transformation is a lot more interesting at the very least. Long Haul can also carry around the head of Devastator, but of course, no matter how you do it, it's going to look ridiculous, but in kind of a charming and cartoony sort of way, in my opinion. Imagine Devastator's head is still sentient, and the rest of the Constructicons just have to help him out. Anyway, Long Haul is a lot more colorful this time. I love the detail on the front here, and the side is a whole lot more solid. Unfortunately, the price for that is a gappy rear, but he has sort of a neat feature where you can remove the bucket here and reattach it to simulate kind of a dumping motion. But of course, I prefer to have Hightower take care of the head because it more realistically resembles some kind of wrecking ball, or at least junk that the crane is moving out of the way. It just attaches to the head at this bar in the jaw. Hightower benefits a lot from added detail. I especially like the cockpit and this support structure in the middle. Of course, this is the most functional of the group. You can rotate it here, you can reposition the whole rig, the cable is on a joint there, and you can even retract and extend the hook, which is pretty fun. Scavenger is structurally very similar to before, he just has an added coat of polish on all of his details, proper treads, cabin, shovel, things like that. There's a little bit of articulation in that main arm, but that's about it. And then, since Mixmaster doesn't technically transform, I consider him the least changed, although I have reworked him structurally so that his proportions match with the rest. He has the proper stripes on his drum this time, and that can rotate, so that's pretty cool. It goes without saying that compared to pretty much anything else I've built, scale is a disaster. I suppose there is some sense of size alongside something like Undex maybe, but even that's a stretch. To transform Devastator, we're going to go through each component individually, and then once everyone is taken care of, we'll put them all together. Starting with Scrapper. First, we're going to lift up the shovel here, and then bring these wheels down and out of the way so that we can rotate this whole section like this. Next, we're going to bring this down and lift this hydraulic up and out of the way, and there he is in arm mode. For Rampage, we're going to flip him around and bring the treads down, and then the entire blade will flip up, and then on a secondary hinge will come back and around and fit over the front, just like this. And there he is as a leg. Overload is pretty simple. We're just going to flip around this back section here, and then swing out these little wing panels. There is a hinge here which will swing up in robot mode, but we'll get to that later. Long haul is going to open up on either side here, and then this will flip down, and these will collapse back to become the heel, and there he is as a leg. High tower collapses down, this flips up, this swings around, and there you have another arm as well. Scavenger is the most complex. You're going to split this entire assembly, swing this back, swing this up, flip around the halves of the shovel, and ratchet these down. There you have his chest. And finally, for Mixmaster, well, you're just gonna leave him be. So I've designed this combination in such a way so that each individual component can stand entirely on its own, which makes this a very balanced and intuitive process. All you need to do is attach Overload right in the middle, and there you have an entire half of Devastator that can stand upright off to the side. Very similarly, High Tower and Scrapper can balance all by themselves. And then we'll take Scavenger and plug him right in the middle as well. And there is the entire front half. So just put 3 and 3 together, line up the arms so that he stands flat-footed, and there's Devastator mostly ready to go. Next, we're going to take Mixmaster and plug him right on top. Then Overload will actually sort of lock in right underneath this front wheel, which makes his body appear a lot more solid. And finally, we'll take his head, plug that in as well, and there you have Devastator in robot mode. Before I give him a turnaround, let's do some quick size comparisons, first alongside Optimus Prime, and while they are vastly out of scale, he's still a fair bit larger than my average Transformer and is quite imposing, especially so alongside something a bit smaller like Undex, who is definitely going to need to summon his allies to take care of this one. On his own, this version of Devastator is a whole lot more solid than he's ever been before. I can pick him up, I can shake him around and walk him, and he's more or less not going to fall apart. For articulation, his legs can do a little bit of walking action here. The arms can swing forward and back on this butterfly joint. They can go up and down, in and out, bend at the elbow. So you can get some movement there. And then, of course, his head has the potential to be very expressive with all of the individual joints in the neck and jaw. But don't forget about the big old piles of sand, because believe it or not, these have a role in robot mode as well. First, we're going to take this portion here and split it in half, and then this will articulate. And then all of this will stack on top of each other and become kind of a funnel shape. Then we're going to take the head and split it apart. A little something like this. Reattach the head. Connect these pieces to Mixmaster, which gives him a little bit more of a purpose in the combination. And finally, he's able to vacuum up Egypt. Or, I guess, just sorta throw up everywhere. That part's up to interpretation. Until next time, this has been Rollout, signing off.